These are the tools required for this installation. Plastic trim tool, it's gonna be a brushless drill, Torx T20 bit, 4mm hex head, 8mm socket, 3/4 inch extension, 10mm wrench. One of RW Carbon's most popular items right now, it's gonna be the C190 GTR style wing. First thing we're gonna do is we're gonna have to clear off the interior door panel. I'm gonna use that using some trim tools, Torx wrench. Check it out. We're gonna be de-trimming the interior panel of the hatch. There's gonna be a little access tab right there. Just gonna pop that off just using a trim tool. And that's gonna give us access to the Torx bolts located underneath that trim piece. Once I've got the Torx bolts removed from the handle, it's gonna become a lot more loose. At that point, I'm gonna use that plastic trim tool, go around the sides, and just pry it open. It's gonna feel a little bit violent. You're gonna need some pressure. And then under that, you're just gonna have 2 pigtails for the lights. That'll pop right out. That's gonna let you remove that interior panel. So now that we have access to the underneath portion of the OEM wing, it's gonna be about 16 nuts attached to the studs on the base plate of the OEM wing. I'm gonna go around and just remove each one of those. So now that I've verified I've removed all the factory bolts, using my thumb from the lower side, I'm pressing up and pulling up slowly from the top side as well. Okay, and that just lifts off. So in this particular case, I don't have the retractable OEM wing. It's gonna be the fixed one, so I have no error delete needed. But in the event that I do have the retractable OEM wing, in this position right here where you see the slit would be a pigtail, which is where you would plug in the wing delete if you have that section. And so right now, I'm just gonna be test fitting the new one that we're gonna be installing. Right now, I'm just sitting it in there. I'm holding it in so it doesn't fall. And then I'm looking underneath to make sure that my holes line up. I'm looking underneath to make sure that my holes line up. Unlike the OEM wing, which has studs, this one will actually have the receptacles for the bolts that are provided. So it's a little bit inverted, but it's the same concept. Cool, so it looks like that's my spot right there. Looks good, looks like it's sitting flush, and my ends are good too. So right now, the only thing that's stopping me from just installing it using the bolts would just be to verify that it's not gonna leak. So I'm gonna pull this off and then we're gonna get that weather stripping installed. This is the surface in which the weather strip's gonna adhere to. So right now I'm just gonna clean it off very thoroughly using as high % alcohol as I can. I have access to 99. You could use as low as 75%, I think is pretty effective. Anything lower than that, you may not get all the dust particles off that you wish to. So just thoroughly making sure the surface is clean of any debris, dust, dirt. Everything's clean after the alcohol. I'll give it a moment to dry, and then I'm gonna go ahead and apply the adhesion promoter before installing the weather strip. And this is also gonna be included. It's gonna be a little sponge. Just go ahead and pull that out, and then just apply it to the surface where the weather stripping is going to be, which is just along the outside, the same surface which I cleaned. Make sure this is thoroughly applied. Using the weather stripping provided, we use the top of the industry Frost King brand. It's all provided, measurements are included in the ad if you really want to go into that. To start off, I'm going to start off on the longest side because at the end of the day, I'm going to want the 2 flat sides to meet up like evenly. So starting from the center on the front edge, it's really going to roll a little bit on the corner there because you also have to make sure to give yourself enough space to get those bolts through. Coming up, you want to make sure that these are going to line up as flat as possible. So I'll just basically overlay it right over the top. Give myself a little bit of extra material. Just use a pair of dikes. You can use scissors. It cuts really, really easily. And then you're just going to want to flatten that right up in there. With a little bit of pressure, it should almost look seamless. I've got it back mocked up onto the car. I'm holding it up, keeping my hands tight to it. This way it doesn't fall off the top of the hatch when I open up. And you want to check your holes, make sure they're lining up. Come on in here. And check this out. So if you look right up in here, I just want to make sure that all my holes have access. You really only have to check the outside corners. It looks like I'm green to go on all 4 of those. So then the other ones inside should line up no problem. So I'm going to start with my corners here. Just enough to get me going. I think you feel safe that it's going to stay there. And at that point, just go around. I do not go all the way down tightening when I have anything like a power tool. I'll always hand tighten when it comes time to. All right, and so the new stationary GTR style wing will have 10 bolts being used as opposed to the 16 that come off. Just put 1 in each hole, pretty simple. Now that I got everything just contact tightened, I'm gonna go back around with the wrench, get it all cranked down to the torque that I like, and then I'm gonna take it in outside, do some hose testing to make sure that it's not leaking. Cool, so when I'm tightening down, I'm gonna start on the outside. Just go around visually and look at your weather stripping, make sure that it's making full contact and that you don't have any open air gaps. Because if you see anything open, then you know that there's no point in testing it, because it's gonna fail. Cool. Right now I'm lining the inside with paper towels. I like to use white because it's visible once it gets wet. And this is just gonna be for testing if any liquids can make its way through. So go ahead and just pull as many of these in. You just wanna fill the gap. Honey. Beautiful. Cool, I'm just getting some plastic lining just to make sure that if it does leak, I'm not getting anything in the customer's car. Luckily this guy has an empty trunk. It's not always like that. So if you got stuff back here you want to protect, make sure it doesn't get wet. I just tuck it underneath this weather stripping. All right, feel pretty good about that. Go ahead and just rip yourself a hole for your latch. Make sure that that can lock in. Okay, pretty good there. Let's close it up and take it outside. Right now I'm just gonna soak it to do the best I can to simulate rainfall. Backside, I'm gonna let it sit for just a little bit, let the water nestle into the little nooks and crannies before opening it back up. All right, and so the experiment, just go ahead and pull these out. Looks good there. And you're just looking for wet spots. Any sort of wet spot. I got fully dry, fully dry. Cool, now that I know that it's not gonna leak, I can go ahead and pull everything out. I'm gonna bring it back inside and I'm gonna finish up the inside, put the panels back in, and we'll be good to go. Cool, opening up. Now all we gotta do is put it back together. If I have the wing delete, I wanna make sure that that's plugged in. That way, like I said, would be located here along this slit here. Luckily on this one, I don't have that. So all I really have to worry about is putting the panels back on in the right order. One pigtail is gonna go right there. Make sure that clips in. And then that bolt, the bulb just screws right in. Hook it over the latch. Line yourself up. Well, make sure the tabs are going into the receptacles before you start slamming into it. Cool, so I'm pretty lined up right now, so all I need to do is just add a couple of those and they're gonna click right in. Finish it off by putting the trim piece, and that's a wrap.